Hey, Rich Weinfeld, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing today, Mark?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's a real pleasure and an honor.
I'm very happy to be here.
I found you on through social media on Instagram, and I actually knew someone who worked with you, and you worked with her son many years ago. It's really kind of a cool coalescing of these events, and to have you sitting here in front of me today is a real pleasure because I know now what you've done in the past, and I have a lot that we can relate to, and it's nice to speak with somebody who's been through these battles in helping parents and children. Very excited to have you here. Um,
I welcome the opportunity to speak about things I'm passionate about, and I really appreciate what you're doing for families by doing these podcasts. So thank you.
well, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. So it's becoming a passion. I'm really finding that I'm really enjoying it and getting to meet wonderful people like yourself. It's opening up my world. We all connect and hopefully impacting people's lives positively. So it's great.
That's
Um,
great.
Maybe we could just start with a little background of your background. You have a very extensive background. I'm going to post your entire resume on my website so people can see, but just to give people an idea of, who you are and how Weinfeld Group got started.
Sure. I don't want to take up the whole hour telling my back. I am in starting my 49th year, so there is a lot there.
There's a lot there, yeah.
But I'll try and just hit the highlights.
Okay.
My first 30 years were in a variety of positions in a public school district, Montgomery County, Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C. Started my career as an elementary school teacher, which was all I ever wanted to be, and I loved that position. Went on to get my master's in special education with a focus on kids with emotional challenge, and spent 15 years working with kids with that constellation of issues at a couple of centers that were separate schools for kids with emotional challenges. Went on to direct a regional program for middle school students with a variety of disabilities. And there I got my official introduction to a group of students called Twice Exceptional, which I realized I had always had a passion about working for. I just didn't have a name for it before then. And really became very interested in that group of students, and was then named the county's first full-time coordinator for all the county's programs and services for that population. And
Nice.
Montgomery County, Maryland is one of the few school districts that does have special classroom programs for that group of kids, which is just
Wow.
phenomenal. And
Yeah.
I was really happy to be part of that. Retired from Montgomery County now about 18 years ago, and um, wanted to help families to navigate the special ed process, to make sure kids were getting appropriate services, appropriate placements. The floodgates quickly opened, and I had more than I could do myself. And over the past 18 years, I've been adding just wonderful people to my group, and we're currently a group of 15 special education experts
Okay.
helping families all over Maryland, DC, Virginia, and now with the advent of virtual meetings all over the United States. So
That's amazing.
we're able to help more and more folks, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about your virtual reach. And I appreciate you going through that, and I appreciate being able to do it with such a brevity. But the thing is that I want people to know who they're listening to, because you do have such a breadth of experience, and that what you have to say comes from a place of knowledge and experience. And so maybe we can just start with Weinfeld itself. It's the breadth of what you do. I mean, there's so much to it. So it seems like almost like a one-stop shop advocacy place, organization for parents who need help navigating the system. Can you just kind of explain what WEG is and the services that you provide?
Yeah. So I like the idea of one-stop shop, but I will say we certainly don't do it all. But but the reason I like the terminology is we feel like if parents call them, either we're going to be able to provide the service or we're going to connect them with excellent folks who do provide the services outside of our group. So they can really get everything they need for special needs kids through conversations with us and our referrals, if not our direct work. But the key to our work is special education consultation. And that is more commonly referred to as advocacy. And, the reason we use the special ed consultation terminology is kids can have a bad name
Yes.
in that anyone can call themselves an advocate. There's no requirement for a certain degree of certifications or credentials.
Sure.
And also advocates can have a bad name because some advocates will just take on whatever the parent's opinion is and just come into meetings often in an adversary way and say what parents want more loudly or more aggressively. That's not what we do. We can only be hired, and I make this clear to every parent who calls us, we can only be hired to form an expert opinion about what's best for the child. And once we form that expert opinion, we then are happy to advocate for that expert opinion to become a reality. But we see the child as our client, not the parents. So
not the parent.
We're helping the parents, but we're helping them by focusing on their child and getting the child what they need in order to make progress.
Can I ask you can I just ask you, how do you find that when you approach the parents, I don't want to call it confrontation, but if you approach the parents and say, okay, this is what we've concluded, and it doesn't necessarily agree with what you want, do you find that to be a challenging experience with the parents, or do you find that they kind of like respect where you're coming from?
It actually has not been a challenging experience because, number one, we set the expectation in the beginning that when you're hiring us, you're going to get an expert opinion. It may agree with what you've already believe, what you already believe, what you've already found.
Mm-hmm.
Many of our parents are extremely bright. They've done the research. Of course, they know their kid better than anybody knows them. So it's not unusual for us to end at the same place, but we've set the expectation with parents that they're coming to us to get the expert opinion. And then there's no surprises as we work with them. We're very transparent that, I observed your child and I saw these things that concern me. That probably is not a good fit for that school you were thinking of because they really don't serve kids with that constellation of issues. So it's a constant conversation, and parents tend to be very accepting of our opinion and appreciative. They think they know what's right for their child, but they want an expert opinion to help them make sure it really is the right thing. And there may be several options too about what is right, and so we discuss the pros and cons of those options with the parent.
So you take them through the evolution of the process along with you, so it's not new at the end where we've taken our opinion and our experience and all our knowledge, and now we come back with this conclusion and just drop it on it. They're carried through the whole process.
Right. It's a constant conversation as we're reviewing the records, observing the child, speaking with all involved staff, both in the school and also outside of the school to get their perspectives. We're sharing all that information completely with the parents, so they're seeing what we're seeing.
It's really wonderful. I mean, it's something that I feel is missing in because a lot of parents don't have this opportunity, and so they just trust the school system, and the schools, they're dealing with all the students, and so it's hard to kind of get that real, insight that they might have because no one's taking the time the way your group can, and offers. So that's really tremendous. You have a lot of other services that you do. I mean, the IEP I know is a real big part, or I believe it's a real big part of what you guys do as far as preparing parents for the IEP process. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So a majority of the students we serve are students who either should be eligible for an IEP or already have an IEP, but the IEP may need some work, some tweaking. So we're extremely knowledgeable about that whole IEP process. In fact, one of the books that I've authored, called Special Needs Advocacy Resource Book, is about the IEP process and what should happen at every stage, and also emphasizes working collaboratively, which is a big value of ours. So we take the parents and the case through each of the stages of the IEP, make sure those stages are done thoroughly, that the team, which we become part of along with the parents, that IEP team really gets a thorough understanding of who the student is, what their present levels are across academics, but also social emotional, social skills, executive functioning, behavior. Then those present levels lead to goals, objectives, accommodations, supplementary aids, and finally services and a placement. So everything is built carefully upon each other to arrive at a place that's really meaningful for the student. And the goal is progress for the student, and the greater goal is progress towards their achieving their unique potential.
Right. And with that in-depth insight, the parents can go into a meeting so much more prepared than a lot of parents typically on average do, where they're just kind of confronted. Many of the meetings I've seen, for the first time, sometimes they haven't even seen the IEP beforehand for whatever the reason may be. And they just trust the school to decide what's best for their child. And a lot of families I know that, come from other countries that don't speak the languages fluently and may not understand the system as well, they just kind of acquiesce very, very quickly. Like, okay, great, you're the authority, I'm just going to trust you. And it may not be that everything serves their child appropriately, to their best potential.
It's an overwhelming process for parents. I've been at an IEP meeting as a parent, and even with my background, it was overwhelming for me because you're one parent, maybe two, if you're lucky, and you're sitting at a table with 5, 6, 8, 10 professionals. You don't trust your own judgment really, because you're subjective.
Sure.
You love this kid, you want everything the best for them, but you don't know, are you overestimating his strengths? Are you underestimating the challenges? You don't know if your judgment is really accurate. And then at the same time, you have people telling you things that you're not sure whether to accept or not, but they're doing it so authoritatively, it's hard to challenge it. So it's a tough experience for any parent, and that's why having a professional with you can make all the difference.
How do families find your organization?
A few different ways. Of course, we're on the internet, and many parents just find us through the internet. We're on a variety of social media, and more parents are finding us there. But the majority of parents come to us because a professional that they trust has recommended us. Their pediatrician, their psychologist, their therapist, speech, OT. That's where the majority of parents come to us through that process.
So then let's move to the virtual component for a second then, because you're in Maryland, and obviously not everybody has access to you firsthand. So does the virtual component allow for people to be able to work with you who aren't in your area?
Yeah, that was actually one of the silver linings of the pandemic, maybe the only one, is that we learned that we could be effective virtually. And at the same time, nearly every school was and still is offering virtual meetings. Schools are finding they can get better attendance from parents. They can get folks who don't work in their school building, central office folks who should be participating to easily attend the meeting. So there's been a lot of positive virtual meetings, but now that has allowed us to serve parents all over the United States, and we've been doing that more and more, and
Oh, that's
with a
wonderful.
lot of success. And there are a lot of parents who are in areas where there are no special ed consultants available, or they may not be satisfied with the special ed consultants that they do have available to
Right.
them in the area.
So that's amazing. And it's great because now I can recommend you to people as well. So, I mean, you have a lot of services. Is there any that you would like to highlight today that you feel a passion for, that you feel is really important for people to know about, or really important for people to know about?
There's so many things I could talk about. Let me start by.
Yeah, I mean, I could ask you about some specific, but if you have any off the top of your head that...
Let me start by talking about our newest effort is called Individualized Education Analysis.
Yes.
And we have developed a report where we can summarize the key elements of the student's records and current functioning. And so what we do is we take all the students' records, review them extremely carefully. We speak with the professionals who are currently involved with the student, both in school and outside of school. And we prepare a report that shows the strengths and concerns in each of the areas that might affect the student in school. And again, that's not just reading, writing, math. It's social skills, social, emotional
the
functioning,
global
executive
picture.
function. So parents get a report that shows strengths and concerns in each of the areas, and then a summary of what should be the next steps. And we make a recommendation such as this child does not have an IEP. They really should qualify, and they do need an IEP. So here's a letter to send to the school requesting that process. And when you send that, attach this report so schools can see that the summary of the child's strengths and concerns. Or it may be a child already has an IEP, but we need to upgrade it, tweak it, change it so it's more effective for the child. So this individualized education analysis can be a standalone service for families that really may not need an advocate. They just need to have the power of this information in order to be an equal partner at the meeting.
Wonderful.
It's also less expensive. It's a finite cost, lump sum payment that is just for the report. Whereas advocacy, we charge by the hour, and I certainly think it's worth it. But the price can certainly mount up over the hours that are required to do sometimes multiple meetings to get to the point of arriving at what the student really needs.
That just gives parents such power then, walking into meetings. So what is the benefit of that over having, or is there a benefit of one over the other, or is it just kind of situational as far as having an advocate that you spoke about earlier, that your organization provides, versus having this piece of information and report that is, as you said, finite? So what are the advantages, and maybe is there one over another?
The obvious advantage of the report is the price. It's going to be less expensive for parents to just get the report done and not have ongoing advocacy. For some parents, they feel very comfortable with their partnership with their current school, and they feel like their relationship is good and they're going to be listened to. And in that case, they may not need an advocate. Just having the power of this information may be all they need to help move things along to the next steps that the child needs.
Yes.
Some parents are going to decide after they get the report that they really do need the advocacy, and we will offer that as well. They're not mutually exclusive, and certainly doing the report prepares both the advocate and the parent for the IEP meeting. But our hope is that for a lot of parents, this will be enough, and this will help them get to the next step for their child. And again, talking about reaching folks all across the United States, for many parents, having this report will allow them to be good partners in the process, and they won't need to bring in an advocate from across the country to help them. They'll be able to advocate on their own.
No, it's amazing. It almost feels like it should be something that's mandatory in the system, you know?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because the law says that parents are partners in the IEP process.
Sure.
The most recent major landmark Supreme Court decision about special education was in 2017 called Andrew F. Endrew, in case folks want to look that up. And there were several major conclusions in that unanimous decision of the Supreme Court, if you can imagine a unanimous decision.
It's hard to imagine.
But some of the major decisions were a focus on each child making progress. That's the standard that the effectiveness of the special ed program and the IEP is measured by. Is it leading to progress for the child? But going to this point, another major point was the parents are an important partner in this process. And so the parents things have to be explained to parents. There has to be what the Supreme Court called a cogent explanation of why the IEP is deciding what they're deciding, why the IEP team might be rejecting what the parent is asking for. Not just this is what we're doing, or this is what we always do, or this is what we have available. Why is it appropriate for this child? So that was a major emphasis that was in the Supreme Court decision. Yeah. And so to your point, how can parents be true partners in this process? Well, hopefully this individualized education analysis will be a vehicle for helping more parents to truly be partners.
It's fantastic. Is this unique to your organization? Did you develop this, or is this?
We did develop it. It is a unique report. I have not seen anybody do anything else like this. Certainly, the idea of parents contributing to information about what is their child's present level is not new, but
sure.
When parents are asked to do that now, they often don't know what to say. They talk about their worries about the child. They might talk about wanting something different.
Right.
But they're not speaking the language of the IEP team in terms of here's where my child is functioning in all these different areas, and here's where the needs are that we should be focusing on.
Right.
Now with this report, they're able to do so.
It's a game changer, really. I mean,
well, I hope so. Thank you.
Potentially, for sure. I mean, I can't imagine that a parent wouldn't want something like that, and maybe the more popular it becomes, the more people who can get access to it.
We hope so. We hope it's going to spread, widely and help a lot of kids.
Right. I know you mentioned that you have a strong connection for twice exceptional students, and I think that's something that you don't hear a lot about. And so I thought maybe you could kind of just explain a little bit of what that is, what that means, and there might be parents out there that don't even realize that their child falls under this umbrella.
Yeah, no, thank you. Love talking about that topic. One of my books is called Smart Kids with Learning Difficulties, and it really is a very comprehensive examination of who these kids are, what are the laws and policies that impact them, and then most importantly, what are the best practices and what do we do? So twice exceptional kids are kids who are simultaneously gifted and also have an area of significant challenge. And they may not have been identified with either. Mm-hmm. And there are actually important reasons why many of these kids do not get identified. Often their gift and their potential disability mask one another, and they just look like an average kid who's kind of muddling along and not really achieving, and they're often categorized as lazy, unmotivated. But when we look deeply and when we get a strong, comprehensive assessment of these kids, we will see on the one hand, they have cognitive abilities that are maybe above the 90th percentile for many of these kids, and maybe above the 98th or 99th percentile. But at the same time, they may have a learning disability that's not allowing them to progress in reading or writing or math. They may have high functioning autism. They may have ADHD, which is interfering with their school progress, speech and language issues, visual impairment, hearing impairment, physical challenges. The list goes on, but the term really covers any student who is a very bright student who has learning challenges that are impacting them from making the progress you would expect of such a bright student.
Right. Yeah, and I think that families, they end up believing that, as you said, their child is just lazy and not performing, and because it's not something that I've come across very much, and I can imagine that parents live in that kind of reality of thinking that their child is just underperforming without understanding that there might be more to it. And because they're in a regular public school or a private school, it's not necessarily being pointed out, that they don't have the expertise to kind of recognize it.
Yeah. So there's a lot there to unpack. Parents can underestimate their kids. They can also overestimate or not understand what's going on. I know my kid is so bright. He can tell me everything about dinosaurs or about the solar system or whatever his area of passion might be, but he can't write it. So what does that mean? Does it mean that he's lazy and he's just refusing to write? Not often. What more likely to mean is there's something that is not working between the brain and being able to organize his ideas and put them on paper, maybe a physical issue, maybe a processing issue. But it is hard for people to understand that these two things go together. I know when I started teaching way back, the prevailing concept was if you were gifted in every way. Right. You were just perfect. And clearly, that is not the way things are,
For anybody.
For anybody. You can look at it just about any famous person, inventor, scientists, and they had their learning challenges. So and sometimes the challenges are relatively mild, but in this group of students, the challenges are significant enough that they both need to have services that address their gift, keeping on nurturing, growing, making progress in that area, but they also need services to address their disabilities so that those skills that are impacted can be addressed and improved upon. And then also, extremely importantly, they need appropriate accommodations.
Right. So that was my question.
Yeah. So that, for example, the kid I was kind of talking about knows everything about the solar system but can't write it. Well, let's allow him to present that orally. Let's allow him to create a film. Let's allow him to create a PowerPoint. Now, somewhere in his day, we also want to work on addressing and improving his writing skills. Mm-hmm. We have to do both. We have to allow him to flourish and grow and demonstrate his incredible intelligence without the impact of the disability. Right. And some other point of the day, we're also working on improving the skills that are impacted by the disability.
Right. So you're evenly addressing both ends, fairly balanced.
I would even say not evenly, but
not evenly,
but more of an emphasis on the gift, because that ultimately, if people are going to be successful in life, and career, post-secondary education, it's going to be utilizing their gifts, and there's ways to find, as I was saying, to accommodate for the weaknesses. So let's really have students learn to be aware of what works for them in terms of accommodations, become self-advocates to ask for what they need when they need it. And then a smaller part of the day to address, let's try to improve those areas that are impacted.
Right. No, I mean, it's the kind of thing where if you have programs within schools and you have teachers that are trained in these type of things, I mean, that's the question that comes to me. You want everybody to be included. You want everybody to have the same experiences or the same opportunity in school. And so are there advantages to having, I mean, you worked in a couple of programs with the twice exceptional students. Were they schools that were primarily just for those type of students, or you worked in public schools and that's where you integrated that?
My public school career included working with students who stayed in the public schools, and within those public schools, for the kids who had the most significant challenges, there were special programs, but the programs were not isolated. Students might have some classes or some part of the day with a cohort of other students who were twice exceptional, but then there was also opportunities to be included, not just with general peers, but to be included with gifted level peers, because of these kids from the special program had the same cognitive abilities as those gifted kids did.
Right.
For other kids, the special program wasn't needed, and what might be needed is just a more minimal special education program, a special ed resource room as one of their 7 periods to get support in getting organized and prioritizing and being able to access technology that might help with text-to-speech or speech-to-text software that might allow them to circumvent their challenges. So definitely many twice exceptional kids can be programmed for successfully in public schools. There are also some wonderful private schools that focus on this population. And so when I'm working with my clients now, we look at both public options and private options and consider, what's best for this individual student. And one thing I like to say about my practice, we don't have a bias that every student should be in private school or the reverse. We look at one student at a time and what is right for this individual student.
I mean, it's such an appeal because that's what schools say that they're doing. They're considering the individual, but it doesn't always come down to that because there are other things that get in the way.
There are, and that, again, that is our focus when we're part of that IEP team, is let's all work with this one student and really focus on who she is, what her strengths and challenges are, what has worked for her in the past, what might we try, especially in an evidence-based way that might help her. And, let's not think about what do we typically do, what's available in this building. Let's think about what she needs, and then let's figure out how to get it for her.
That's fantastic. Do you have, you talk about on your website about being able to communicate in all different varieties of communication styles. Do you have access to sign language within your program, or have you come across that before where you've needed someone as an interpreter? Do you hire an interpreter? How would that work?
Yeah, I don't believe any of our 15 current special ed consultants, and I may be misstating, but I'm not aware of any that do have that proficiency, but we can certainly bring somebody in to help support that, as needed. And also, when we're working with the school system, we utilize the resources they have, and that goes both for something like sign language or for speakers of other languages.
Yeah, exactly.
We're involved in some special programs supporting Latina girls in the area. That's
my segue into the next question. That's perfect.
I'll let you go ahead.
No, I was going to say you have these programs that that reach these Latina girls, and so let's just go with it. Tell me about it.
So we were very fortunate to be brought in on an existing program called Community Bridges, and this is in Montgomery County, Maryland, where a wonderful philanthropist named Robin Salomon has funded a program to focus on a group of Latina girls whose parents, in most cases, parents were new to this country, and many of the girls were born in the United States. Others may not have been, but to focus on their particular needs and their social emotional needs, their tutoring needs. And then we were brought in, Weinfeld Education Group, were brought in to look at, did this group of girls have special education needs? And, what I actually knew from years in special education is often kids who were speakers of other languages get overlooked for special education because the focus is on acquisition of English, and there are programs in every school district to address the acquisition of English. What happens when that coincides with special education is the typical program for acquisition of English might not be enough.
Right.
Students may not be acquiring English in the time period that we think they should because they have a learning disability that affects them, whatever language they're speaking in.
Sure.
But
and I would imagine, I'm sorry, I would imagine that could delay the process too, because the language could be concealing it for, during these very, very important years of acquisition of another language.
That's exactly what happens. Is there's the view seems to be that these kids are not acquiring English, and it has nothing to do with special ed, or special ed doesn't really have to focus on this kid because they're already in a program to acquire English. But what we found in focusing on this group of girls is many of them did have true special education needs. They qualified as students with learning disabilities or as other health impairment due to ADHD, and we were able to have them identified for IEPs and to start receiving special education services. So that really changed things for those girls. So instead of kind of being caught in this system of English language learning, which they could never exit because they couldn't pass the tests to show they were proficient, now the focus is on using evidence-based interventions to teach them reading, writing, math, so that they can make progress. So we're very proud of our work in that program, proud to be part of this wonderful existing program, Community Bridges.
It's really amazing. How long have you been connected with the Community Bridges?
Gosh, I think it's about 2 years now.
2 years.
A little bit more.
Okay.
And the program continues to grow and flourish, and it's certainly a program that other school systems and private groups within those areas could replicate because it's been extremely successful.
It's fantastic. You also then have programs that work with young African American boys. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and not just boys.
Okay.
We after the murder of George Floyd, we did some introspection as a company, as individuals. What could we do to help make a difference? And we decided to really focus on what we already are doing well, which is providing advocacy services that help individual students to make progress. The statistics are dramatic and disheartening around Black special needs students. They're worse for boys than girls, and maybe that's why you refer to it. But they are bad for all Black special needs students. And what happens is either non-identification for special education, often misidentification, where school systems focus on the behavior of the students, and so classify the students as emotionally disabled, rather than seeing the root cause of the behavior, which may be inability to read, inability to write, inability to do math. So within our program, we are focusing on the needs of students in this population, providing some no-cost advocacy services to these families, regardless of their financial well-being, but just as a way to give back to the Black community, and then providing ongoing services at a sliding scales. So some families will
Okay.
continue to qualify for no-cost services. Others will pay a reduced fee if there's a financial need. The program is called Special Education Excellence for Underserved Students, and the acronym is CUS. And we've now been doing it for a little over a year, served over 30 families thus far. And the same philanthropist who supports the Community Bridges program, Robin Salomon, is now going to be supporting our efforts to go into individual schools and work with a whole cohort of students.
Oh man,
within
that's
those
great.
schools to hopefully not only help the students, but to demonstrate that there is a systemic problem
Right.
that the school districts need to address, and hopefully this can be a catalyst for addressing those problems.
Man, that's powerful. That's really, really wonderful.
Thank you. I really, I'll say that 48 years ago when I started teaching, in my first semester of teaching, I remember there's this new focus on underachievement of Black students, and we're seeing the disparity, and we're going to work on it. That was 1975.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's been a slow process, right?
Slow process. There's been many initiatives over the years, but we really feel like this initiative can make a difference for those students who have special needs. And there's something very real called the school to prison pipeline, which is, it's all about kids who are not identified for receiving appropriate services, end up having behavior problems, end up often dropping out of school. And then these kids make up our prisons,
Right.
to a very high percentage.
Sure.
Prisons are full of students who have disabilities, much more impactful in the Black community.
Well, I'm just so happy to have the opportunity to have this be a platform so people can hear about this program, and if there's anything I can do to continue to spread that word, let me know. I'm in.
And it is something we're going to do research through a local university on the program as we go forward, and we're hoping that that'll then be the basis to replicate the program in other school districts around the United States, because it's certainly a national problem and not just a local problem.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm coming across a lot of parents who are now, or they're in, or they're approaching the transition from the secondary level to what comes next. I'm not sure how much your program, because you really are focused on the schools, elementary and the high school and the IEPs and all those things. Once that's over, a lot of families are at a loss, and the system seems to be a little bit short of being able to fully prepare these families for the options. Is there anything that your organization does, and it's fine if you don't. I'm just curious what your take is on it also, even if it's just your take on the whole situation.
Yeah, no, there's a lot I can say about that. So the preamble to the special ed law talks about the purposes of special education, and it's to prepare students for secondary education, independent living, and meaningful employment. So special education is supposed to be all about what comes after 12th grade, or for some kids, what comes after 21.
21, correct.
If they have significant disabilities and stay in school, in high school for those years. So again, part of the law is that beginning at age 14, we should be talking about transition. We should be helping students to understand where they're headed, what their goals are in terms of secondary education, independent living, and employment. We should be doing things to help prepare students for that. The reality is, in my opinion, we do a very surface kind of job about that. There's part of the IP meeting where, okay, let's talk about transition, and it's not very meaningful for most students. There's not a lot of meat to the bones of what we're doing to help them prepare. And then they graduate or age out, and then they're at a loss. Parents are at a loss.
Right.
So many of these kids are living in their parents' basements,
Right.
playing video games, not doing anything meaningful. So I think I'm glad you're spotlighting it. It's a crucial issue. We do have a consultant within our group who is a transition specialist. And so when parents find themselves either approaching that graduation date or after that graduation date and not knowing what to do, we have a wonderful specialist within our group whose career was at a special education school, a non-public school, focused on a very intensive population and providing them with the supports they needed to go on after high school. So she knows the agencies, she knows what kids need, she knows how to connect kids with or I shouldn't say kids, I should say connect young adults with what they need for going on to the next step. So that is a service we're happy to connect parents with, but it's a huge need, and it's a place where there's not enough service, and where we really, after all this intensive IEPs and special ed service that many kids do receive throughout their public school career, then all of a sudden there's this
drops off
off where there's nothing, and it's
and what was it all for?
It's a big problem, and we definitely need more professionals to address this.
It's great. It's wonderful to hear that you have someone there, and definitely would love to speak with that person.
Her name is Gretchen Levine.
Okay.
And you can see her on our website at either WeinfeldEducationGroup.com or WEGAdvocacy.com. Same place.
Same place. Okay. You offer workshops to parents, educators, and professionals. Can you just talk about those programs a little bit?
Yes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about that. We do think that the ongoing education of parents, the ongoing training of professionals is crucial so that we can impact more and more students. So we do several things. I've mentioned a couple of the books I've co-authored within our group. We've co-authored 10 books, and they're all mentioned and available through our website.
Can I plug this one right now?
Please. Yeah, go ahead.
I just received this, so I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm very excited about this because this is going to be sort of a new Bible for me, I think so.
Oh, thank you. Well, so that is the book
I'm sorry, it's entitled Special. You can't see. It's entitled Special Needs Advocacy Resource Book, and I don't know why I'm having such difficulty saying advocacy today. Go ahead.
So that book specifically really takes parents and teachers through the IEP process, what every stage is supposed to do. It's infused with our philosophy of collaboration, because we believe that everybody around that IEP table are people who care about kids, and that's why they went into this profession. So how do we get that team working together for the benefit of kids? So I think it can be a very valuable tool for parents and professionals about what the law says, what's supposed to happen at each stage, why it's important. We also have a graduate course that is developed around the information from that book, and that's available through our website as well. It's an online self-paced course.
Oh, wow.
We have a few special needs courses that are available. They are hosted by a company called CE Credits Online, ceco.com, I believe it is, CE Credits Online. So that's another way we do training for parents and staff. We do frequent webinars. Try to do one every month. Most of them are free. And again, the information on our website. Folks can also sign up for our email list on our website. The webinars, we bring in professionals both from our own group and also outside of our group to talk about a variety of topics related to different disabling conditions, different interventions that work for kids. We recently had a panel talking about executive functioning. I believe we have an upcoming webinar on transition, which you and I
really? I will check
just
that out.
touched on. So yeah, those are ongoing. We do a yearly conference, which is now both in person and virtual, so people anywhere can participate. We call it Diamonds in the Rough, as a tribute to the kids that we're working on, and who are truly diamonds in the rough, and who we can uncover and help to see their brilliance and help them to shine.
Beautiful.
And that conference. We bring together expert presentations. We typically devote one day for one or two presentations that are focused on professionals and for which they get CE credits. And then those same speakers will speak the next day in a format that's more oriented towards parents, although parents and professionals are welcome and encouraged to come both days. Mm-hmm. We have a variety of breakout sessions on a whole wealth of different topics around working with special needs kids successfully. So it's been a very successful conference, one that people really enjoy coming to, networking with each other. So that's available through the website as well.
That's in October. That's in the fall. You said
that's going to be in October. And it's second or third.
It'll be on your website.
It'll be on the website.
Okay.
And yeah, we're just getting the details together for this coming October.
Okay.
We also have been hired by schools, school districts, parent groups to do training on a variety of topics, and those are typically related to our books and articles, which really cover just about every topic within special education. So we love those opportunities, and again, please take a look at our website for those possibilities.
Great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to next October. I would definitely love to be a part of that for sure. Is there anything that we might have missed, or anything that you'd like to mention before we wrap it up? There's been you've given us so much information, and there's so much more I know. But if there's anything that you'd like to say before we wrap it up.
Just I think I've touched on, all the important pieces. I'll just summarize by saying, I think the three things about our group that kind of separates us from others is, number one, we only hire special education experts. So while anyone can call themselves an advocate, everyone in our group has advanced degrees, and equally important to us, they've worked in schools before. So it's not just theoretical.
Yeah.
They know, what works, what doesn't. They also understand what school people are up against, and that there are limited resources, limited time, sometimes conflicting messages from the bureaucracy or the supervisors. So
yes,
that's an important understanding to come into the meetings with. Secondly, I've said it a few times, but we really believe strongly in collaboration. So we don't come in an adversarial way. We don't come in to make the school folks wrong or to blame them. It's about how do we all work together for this one child to make a difference for them. And then third, and I think I touched on this, but we believe these services should be available for everyone. They should not just be for folks who are affluent. Mm-hmm. So from our inception, we've had a sliding scale where we look at folks' income, and then we charge a price that we believe is fair for folks based on their income. We also have these wonderful partnerships, and I mentioned a couple of them for Latino girls, for the Black students with special needs, where we can bring no-cost services. We also have some community organizations that we have partnerships with, like the Children's Law Center of Washington, other organizations that will either pay for our services fully or help pay for our services, so that
fantastic.
We can make ourselves more affordable for more people. We know through our surveys that over 90% of our clients see success for their students through our advocacy. So our goal is to bring this service to more and more folks, regardless of their ability to pay for it.
It's fantastic. It's, what I love about what I'm hearing from you as far as the organization's position and just meeting you, you lead with your heart. And that's where I feel like, that it needs to be always when we're dealing with children. And especially these kids that need the little extra help. And it's about the love, and so giving parents that security that they've got somebody behind them, because there's such stresses in their daily lives. And, I see it on their faces when you can just speak to them as a human being, and let them know that you understand where they're coming from and that you're just there to help. You can almost just see, just for a moment, just relax, physically before you, and maybe finally have a smile that they haven't had for a little while. So,
thank you for saying that. And that is such an important thing for us. And from folks' first contact with us, we have a few wonderful folks who answer our phones. And they're not picked randomly. They're all parents of special needs kids.
Wow.
So they understand and they communicate immediately to parents that, I hear you, and we're going to help you, and you've come to the right place.
That says so much about you and your organization, that you're to that degree, right? That specific about that and that caring about that. It's fantastic.
We know, as you said, we know folks are under stress and that they're calling us because of some level of crisis. And of course, we all love our children and would do anything for them. And so we want to make sure to meet them at that same point. And let me turn around and say, it's clear that you lead with your passion for kids and your love for kids. And it's been such a pleasure speaking with you and getting to know you as well.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor to get to sit down with you today. Your experience, your history speaks for itself. And just to be able to meet you, and you're just such an accessible person. Thanks for being so accessible, and thanks for being so willing to share.
Thanks for having me today.
My pleasure. I'll be in touch, because when I'm down in Maryland, I want to come visit.
Let's, we'll get together for sure.
Set that up. All right. You have a great day. Okay, Rich?
All right.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Take care.